Vietnam hides wonders most travelers never see. Shadowed limestone giants, jungle lodges alive with unseen creatures, ancient stories rising from fire-lit water. Today, we're stepping into a Vietnam that reveals itself only to those who go looking. Just steps from Hoan King Lake sits the Thang Long Water Puppet Theater. Ordinary on the outside, but once the lights fall, Vietnam's oldest legends erupt from the water. Drums, firelight, and wooden figures dancing across the surface in a way that feels electric and unforgettable. It's a tradition nearly 1,000 years old, performed by master puppeteers hidden behind the stage, guiding every movement from beneath the water. It's one of those rare shows that stays with you long after the curtain falls. At the end of the show, the group of talented puppeteers show themselves, and I was impressed that some of them were women. I highly recommend it. Leaving the bustle of Hanoi behind, we slip onto the highway and watch the city slowly dissolve into open space. The traffic thins, the air changes, and the landscape begins to stretch out into wide fields and distant limestone silhouettes. As we cruise southeast, the road carries us past the massive VinFast automotive complex, a futuristic landmark rising out of the countryside, Vietnam's bold leap into the world of electric cars. As we speed down the expressway, a colossal skyline rises on our left. Vinhome's Ocean Park, the megacity built by Vingroup, the same powerhouse behind VinFast. It feels less like passing an apartment complex and more like skimming the edge of a brand new metropolis. Then the scenery shifts again, trading industry for quiet villages, rice paddies, and the soft green folds of the northern mountains. As we continue down the highway, the landscape turns haunting. Row after row, mile after mile of trees snapped clean in half, their trunks splintered by Typhoon Yagi when it tore through this region a while back. In the distance, several buildings had their roof torn completely off. It feels like driving past the storm's lingering fingerprints. With every kilometer, the world grows calmer, the air saltier, until the road finally leads us toward the coast and the emerald waters of Lan Ha Bay waiting ahead. We roll up to the dockside, joining the line of travelers waiting for the ferry that will carry both us and our coach across to Cat Ba Island. Towering above the water like colossal guardians, the pylons of the Phu Long cable car rise out of the bay, massive steel giants carrying the world record gondola line toward Cat Ba Island. The ferry rolled in with a deep, echoing rumble, its ramp dropping as a stream of inbound cars, motorbikes, and passengers poured out like a tide returning to shore. Moments later, the crew signaled, and the outbound vehicles were waved forward in a precise, almost choreographed sequence. Once the last engine rumbled aboard, it was our turn. The call for foot passengers went out, and we fell in behind An as she guided us up the gangway and straight to the upper passenger deck, where the real journey was about to begin. Saxon and I snagged a pair of front row seats, hoping for an unobstructed panorama as the ferry pulled away from the dock. But our victory was short-lived. Within minutes, a solid wall of passengers crowded the windows, forming an impenetrable human curtain that swallowed our view almost completely. You've all heard of the slow boat to China. Well, this was the slow boat to Cat Ba Island. It inched forward like it was wading through molasses, crawling at a pace that could make a snail impatient. Mid-channel, we slipped past the ferry's sister ship as she made her steady run back toward the mainland, while we continued carving our way toward the far side of the bay. The Inch by inch, minute by minute, the island finally rose ahead of us. Proof that even the slowest journeys eventually get you there. As we closed in on the dock, the crew moved into position, lowering the main ramp and lining it up with a concrete apron so the vehicles could roll off the moment we touched down. We rolled off the ferry, climbed back onto our bus, and crossed to the far side of the island, where our afternoon cruise boat was waiting to take us sailing through the limestone wonders of Lan Ha Bay. Driving across Katba Island felt like moving through a jungle kingdom. Limestone peaks rising on one side with dense green forests and quiet valleys flashing past the windows, and the Gulf of Tonkin on our right as we made our way toward Lan Ha Bay. Arriving at the dock, we waited for our boat to make its way in from its offshore anchor. Just enough time for everyone to grab a few quick selfies before the adventure continued. We stood there, taking in the view, towering limestone islands and jagged karst formations rising straight out of the sea like ancient monuments. When our boat finally pulled in, the captain bought out the OSHA-approved boarding ladder, which was a flimsy plastic chair, and helped us to climb aboard and begin the next chapter of the journey. There's the captain and Lily, welcoming me aboard with big smiles. The moment we stepped on deck, we all spread out to explore, scouting for the best spots to stretch out, kick back, and soak in the views. With a boat built for 50 passengers and only 8 of us on board, it felt like we had our own private cruise. Looking back toward the dock, you can see the limestone cliffs of Katba Island rising behind us, those rugged karst formations standing like ancient guardians watching us head out into the bay. As the boat pulled away from the dock, the crew brought out a delicious lunch. Perfect timing as we settled in and watched the limestone peaks drift past. Peter and Lily joined Saxon and me at one table, while Sharon and Lawrence, along with Glenn and Barbara, settled in at the other. Our little group spread out and ready to enjoy lunch on the open water. It was incredibly peaceful, enjoying a delicious lunch while the calm bay waters drifted past and massive limestone islands slid by like silent giants. Lan Ha Bay is part of the same limestone system as Ha Long Bay, formed from ancient coral reefs that developed during the late Paleozoic era, roughly 260 million years ago. Over geological time, tectonic uplift raised these reefs above sea level, and chemical weathering, mainly carbonation from rainwater, carved the limestone into the karst towers, sinkholes, and caves visible today. As we continued along the coastline, the scenery shifted into sheer limestone walls rising straight out of the water, streaked with age and draped in pockets of bright green vegetation clinging to impossible ledges. A little farther on, the rock opened into a dark sea cave carved over centuries by the tide, a quiet reminder of how powerful and patient the ocean can be. And as we drifted past the next cliff, the stone was banded with layers of marine life, each line marking years of rising and falling tides. It was one of those stretches where every direction you look feels like a different chapter of the same ancient story. The bay contains more than 300 limestone islands and islets, most of them steep and uninhabited. Unlike Ha Long Bay, Lan Ha's islands are heavily forested, and many have small, sheltered beaches created by long-term wave erosion. Lan Ha Bay is about 70 square kilometers in size and falls under the Katba National Park and the UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. Historically, the waters around Lan Ha Bay were used by fishing communities from Katba Island, with records of settlements dating back several centuries. Today, Lan Ha Bay is managed as part of the Katba Archipelago Biosphere Reserve, recognized for its biodiversity and relatively low level of tourism impact compared to neighboring Ha Long Bay. Lan Ha Bay is one of the most active sections of the Gulf of Tonkin, with dozens of tourist boats operating daily. These vessels follow established routes between Katba Island, the karst clusters, and the smaller beaches, creating steady marine traffic throughout the day. In addition to tourism, the bay supports several long-standing fishing communities. Small floating villages and aquaculture farms are distributed across sheltered coves, where families maintain fish cages, oyster lines, and supply boats. These villages have operated for generations and remain an important part of the local economy. After a few hours drifting through the bay, the water opened into a quiet cove, and the kayak station came into view. This was our next chapter, slipping into the kayaks for a guided paddle around a nearby island, exploring its hidden beaches and untouched shoreline at water level. Most of our group, On included, slipped into their kayaks and set off with the guide. Since I'm not the strongest swimmer, I decided to stay behind, stretch out on one of the lounge chairs, and enjoy a quiet break while waiting for their return. After about an hour, the quietness of the cove broke with the distant echoes of our group's excited voices. Our group was on their way back, paddling toward the kayak station at the end of their excursion, their laughter carrying across the water long before they came into view. One by one, the kayaks glided up to the floating dock, and everyone began to disembark. Each person stepped out with a big smile, the kind that instantly told you just how much they'd enjoyed this little adventure. While everyone was still in their bathing suits, a few of them couldn't resist the pull of the water and slipped in for a quick swim. The bay was calm and inviting, and it became one of those spontaneous moments where the group just enjoyed the simple pleasure of floating and splashing around before getting ready for the next part of the day. In the distance, one of the few islands with a sandy beach came into view, a rare sight in this maze of limestone cliffs. Peter, Lily, and Saxon couldn't resist. They slipped into the water and swam all the way to shore, determined to experience something most travelers never get the chance to feel: the thrill of stepping onto a tiny, untouched island in the middle of the bay. As the afternoon wore on and the sun dipped lower toward the horizon, it became clear our day on the water was coming to an end. We made our way back toward the dock, ready to catch the bus that would take us to the Eco Lodge for our overnight stay. What happens when you check into a lodge so deep in the jungle that the night comes alive around you? We reached the Ba Eco Lodge late in the evening, just after the sun had slipped behind the tall mountains surrounding the property. The place felt tucked away from the world, quiet and wrapped in jungle shadows. My room was large and comfortable, designed with natural materials to blend into the environment. But that also meant it wasn't completely sealed. So for the night, the mosquito net became my best friend, our only defense against getting drained dry before sunrise. It even came with a quirky open-plan bathroom. No defined shower stall, just one big room where everything shared the same space. It definitely added to the Eco Lodge charm and the adventure. Late that night, I had an unexpected visitor, a little Ba cutie who slipped into my room and kept me company for a couple of hours. I won't say she let me sleep, but she definitely made the night interesting. Here are a few photos of the midnight intruder. This is a Ba tiger gecko. A gecko began calling from the rafters, a sharp, rhythmic chirp that echoed through the room and kept me wide awake. In the morning light, the Ba Eco Lodge felt completely different. Walking through the grounds, we passed wooden bungalows tucked beneath the trees, each one blending into the hillside. Stone paths wound through the property. This is the main building that houses the reception area and a fully stocked bar in the same building. All around these buildings, the jungle rose in a living wall of green, lush, wild, and pressing in from every direction. This is the breakfast area, with the kitchen set just behind it in the building at the back. That's one of the guest buildings, with rooms on both the upper and lower floors. And just to the right is their organic garden, where I spotted several different plants growing. Being so far from civilization, the lodge has learned to be partly self-sufficient, and this organic garden is one of the clearest signs of that. A little farther on, the lodge opened into a quiet courtyard with a simple swimming pool, a calm spot surrounded by jungle, perfect after a long day of exploring. We arrive at the open-air breakfast area just as the morning settles over the valley. The air is cool, the kind that carries the scent of damp leaves and fresh earth. Birds chatter from the treetops, and the soft rustle of the jungle wraps around the space like a natural soundtrack. Plates of breakfast arrive steaming and colorful, and as we sit down, it feels less like a meal and more like a moment, surrounded by nature, wrapped in quiet and completely at peace. After a while, a swirl of bright yellow butterflies drifted in, and suddenly we were surrounded. They looped around us in every direction, and a few even landed gently on our shoulders and arms for a brief moment before fluttering away again. After breakfast, we packed up our bags, checked out, and made our way to the waiting bus.
Good morning, Mr. Twee. How are you? Okay. Good, good. This is Mr. Twee, our driver for the trip.
After everyone was aboard and settled in, we moved off. Outside, the Eco Lodge host gave us a big smile and a fond farewell. The bus carried us down the winding road toward the dock, where the ferry would take us back to the mainland. The final ride at the end of a terrific 2-day adventure. We waited at the dock for the ferry to arrive, the heat settling in around us. Nearby, the dockside workers lounged in the shade, taking a quiet break as they watched the water and waited right along with us. We stood at the edge of the dock, watching as the ferry slowly approached, its hull pushing a gentle ripple across the water. Inch by inch, it lined itself up with the concrete apron, engines humming low as the crew guided it in with practiced hand signals. We boarded the ferry and settled in as it rumbled to life, easing away from the dock and beginning its slow, steady journey across the bay. The mainland waited somewhere beyond the haze, and with each passing minute, the water, the cliffs, and the memories of the last 2 days drifted by like scenes from a final chapter. We reached the opposite shore and rolled off the ferry, stepping back onto solid ground for the final leg of the journey. From there, the road carried us from wide-open coastal spaces into the rising tide of city life, until, before long, we were right back in the heart of Hanoi's hustle and traffic, a world away from the quiet we just left behind. Stay tuned for the next chapter in this journey, where we explore the sprawling Ho Chi Minh Mausoleum and step inside the places he once called home.